It's not normal to live in lack and fear and scarcity. It's not normal to shove your feelings down. It's not normal to compare yourself to everyone around you. It's common because
it has to do with these emotions that are stuck inside your body, in your cells.
There is not a woman that naturally feels her feelings the way they need to be felt.
Here's a belief I have, and I would love to hear your thoughts.
Fully allow the cycle and the flow of all of that emotion that you're feeling, that you've been holding around the shit with her.
So what's the difference between having a 3D consciousness and a 5D consciousness?
Since the scientific truth is that we're spiritual, energetic beings having a human experience, the definition of woo-woo is that it is not founded on anything real.
Addicted to stress and anxiety, how can they start to regulate their nervous system?
You hold your breath for so long, so frequently, and that keeps you dysregulated. You simply go, wait a second, I am going to tap into my power. Let me make a new choice. And let me breathe. I'm not going to fight against the truth that everything happens for the highest good, even in the moments when it feels like straight shit.
Welcome to the podcast, Tracy Litt. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to hang out with you.
Before we get started, would you mind sharing a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I am a mother of 3 young women. I'm the founder of the Litt Factor and the founder of the School of Becoming. And we take women leaders and entrepreneurs into the next level of their identity. So we do all of the internal work of healing and trauma release from the body and getting back into the body and rewiring your mind and shifting your relationship with fear and understanding frequency and energy in a way that makes so much sense that you actually treat yourself like the energy that you are. And from that space, everything opens up.
Beautiful. There's a lot in there that I want to unpack.
Great.
Before we dive into more of that, I want to start out kind of by getting to know who Tracy is.
Sure.
I know you have a amazing story of your own, and so correct me if I get something wrong here, but your mother was born of Holocaust survivors. She was later diagnosed with cancer, and she was given 6 months to live, to which she astonished doctors, and she thrived on for years, and until you were 24 years young. And I'll let you kind of tell it from there, but I just thought this was such an amazing story. I would love to hear it from you.
Yes, thank you. My mother was a force of nature in this world. And so I'm trying to think where to go with this story. When she got diagnosed and then chose to not believe the length of time and the diagnosis from the doctors, she started to dig into her own healing and her own spirituality and her own personal growth. And that's what really, truly gave her 3.5 years where the doctor said 6 months. She started to uncover and recognize, and this is like 1998, right? So this is before it was cool to do this work, which is what makes this such a profound thing to extract. And I really appreciate you going into this specific part of all of the things I've experienced. So she started diving in to understand, I'm a healthy woman, I don't smoke, I don't drink, like what is this cancer from? And started to draw the correlations of the emotional repression and suppression that she had, not only of herself from her whole upbringing and being raised by my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, which came with his own rage and his own appropriate reactions to his lived experience, right? It was then what was in her like DNA, what was then passed down to her as a result of being born from him. And in her recognizing that, she started to work with it. So she ended up becoming a women's empowerment leader and a spiritual counselor and going down this beautiful journey that gave her more life and actually allowed her to start to be a leader in this space, where she was writing articles and showing up and speaking. And that was integral to who I have become, right? And not for any other reason than it seeped into me. And I started to understand things, and I started to see the world at a higher conscious level than most 20-year-olds or 23-year-olds. And when she passed at 24, then it was like, okay, in my opinion, the most important thing about death is that we honor it as the living.
Mm,
So how do I really, really honor who she was, and how do we take her experience and continue to gift it to the world?
mm.
So I'll pause there.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so I'm assuming you probably got curious because it sounds like your mother had this spiritual belief behind her already. Like she had that foundation that you were probably exposed to. And I'm
Mhm.
guessing that was kind of the catalyst
Mm.
into what you do today.
Well, interestingly, this is so good. Not really, because I was a punky 20-year-old. I didn't want to know from the people in white robes and crystals in my backyard. I didn't want to talk to the numerologist that was sitting at my dining room table. I thought it was all bullshit, because as in your 20s, you're not like, oh yeah, let me, and that's why I was referencing, like, it was seeping in. It wasn't something I was choosing. It was like, oh, what happened was her experience put it into my consciousness. Whether
Mm,
or not I was accepting it was a bit different. And then I had to learn the hard way. And I ended up being a single mother with an 8-month-old daughter at the age of 28, and ended up in a sociopathic relationship because I wasn't honoring my worth. And these things were happening that were, knocks from the universe, like dark moments and awakenings, like, hello, are you going to wake up? And
mm.
I, and then when I finally did wake up, and I was at that point a vice president of human resources, that's when uh, I could connect to myself enough, and I could start to hear the gnawing and the rumblings in my soul, right? Like, this isn't enough. You are made for something bigger. You're tapped to do something in this world, and you need to be utilized in a different way. And I was paralyzed by the fear of that for 2 years and stayed in that corporate job until I finally took the leap. And once I did leap, then enrolled in coaching school and hypnotherapy and neurology and all the things I've done. Uh, and that's been wildfire ever since, because I finally listened and I made the move I had to move for then greater intelligence to meet me where I was.
I want to back up for one moment. You mentioned your grandfather's emotions that he had suppressed, and then your mother inherited. So, was your mother able to release those before her death, or was that something that it was also passed on to you, and then you needed to work through that in order to move forward?
Yes, some of it she processed, not all of it.
Okay.
Had she gotten cancer in 2015, this would be a whole different conversation, right? But she was diagnosed in 97. She died in 2001. It was not the world we're in now of spirituality and consciousness and healing and all of these different uh Eastern modalities and opportunities. That was only like in like small pods you could find it, and it was weird and woo and all of these things. So she processed what she was able to process. And one of the gifts, in terms of the work that I do, I'm an emotional healer by my gifts in the world, like
Mm.
by what I have been told by my shamans and intuitive readers and everything. Like, that is really who you are. And my clients joke around, like, don't wear mascara to a coaching call with Tracy, because emotion is what we live for, right? So emotional expression is a massive component of what we do, getting women back into their bodies so that they can actually feel safe, feeling the full spectrum and getting clean and clear in their nervous systems so they can release anything that they've been suppressing, because there is not a woman that naturally feels her feelings the way they need to be felt. And if we're not feeling the feelings that we deem as painful or bad, then we're not feeling the great ones either. And we're not fully self expressed. And one of my roles in this world is to ensure that I help millions of women become fully self expressed.
Mm. Why do you think that we are taught to suppress and to numb our emotions?
Well, originally it was a drip process thing, right? It's just the paradigm of the way it was. And that's, we are who we are because of where we came from and who raised us. So no one had a modeling of a mother, a grandmother, a great grandmother, right? Or a very small percentage that just willingly felt her feelings, right? That just willingly cried her eyes out, that just willingly allowed the vulnerability. So it becomes this learned behavior. And it's not something that that we perceive as safe to do, right? So that's things like that occur, that natural drip I just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is we call it normal because it's common, but
Right.
it's not normal. None of the way we are in the control matrix, none of the way that we are in this third dimension of limitation is normal. It's not normal to live in lack and fear and scarcity. It's not normal to have imposter syndrome and use it as a crutch. It's not normal to shove your feelings down. It's not normal to compare yourself to everyone around you. It's common because we're all limited until we recognize we're unlimited. And then we turn around and we call it normal. So then it continues to get churned through our society, and then it's normalized. And then everyone's like, well, that's just the way it is. And then we perpetuate more of it. And that drives me nuts, which is why I'm here owning this position as a change maker for all
Mm-hmm.
of us.
You said that we don't feel safe.
Mm.
So why is it that women don't feel safe to feel their emotions, and how can we begin to?
Okay, so specifically for women, because we were muted, suppressed, oppressed, nothing about being a woman was safe, period. And this is not even at the level of the nervous system, which I'll talk about in a minute, right? But really, like, the world, the fact that we are liberated is not even like fully 100 years old yet. Like, when you think, right, like, let's just be there, because it's like, what? We
Yeah.
forget that. We're like, no, feminism and feminine women, no. So of course, like, we're just getting to that point. I can feel it, right? You're feeling me, and I can feel your emotion. It's beautiful. It's like, holy shit. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If we were, burned at the stake for our wisdom and our wildness and our emotion and our intuition, now we're gonna all of a sudden just click our fingers and be, women everywhere are just gonna like express. And
Yeah.
it's literally programmed into us that way,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it feels so hard, which then brings in the conversation about the essentialism of the work we get to do with our nervous systems, because it is our nervous system that has been told, mm-mm-mm. It is not safe to express. It is not safe to be who you are. It is not safe to feel your feelings. And when I say feel your feelings, I want everyone to broaden their mental picture of what that is. It's not just the feelings you judge as bad, like crying, which isn't bad, but people judge it as bad, or rage, which isn't bad, but people judge it. It's not just that. If you're not a woman who fully expresses and feels her feelings until they're done being felt, then you are suppressing all of the other emotions as well, like praise and pride and bliss and radiance and hey queen, I killed it, and look at this beautiful success, or look at this win. And this is the conversation I want to have the most, because no one's talking about it this way. I'm not just asking you to decongest the resentment and the anger and the insecurity and the sadness, which is all stunningly gorgeous. I'm also telling you that if you don't feel that, you are going to prohibit yourself from feeling the elevated emotions that you're so desperately wanting to feel because you want to be high vibe so badly, but you're not actually high vibe if you're congested.
Mm,
I don't care how many retreats you go to or what you invest in. If you are emotionally congested, you are actively prohibiting your ability for your electromagnetic field to be pure and resonant.
mm. Here's a belief I have, and I would love to hear your thoughts. That because of these trapped emotions, whether they're suppressed, repressed, they are actually the cause of everything, even physical.
Yes,
Yeah, even if you break a bone, it or you have a sty in your eye, whatever it is, it actually has to do with these emotions that are stuck inside your body in your cells.
1,000%. You know, emotion, and this is like, there's so much great works of like, I'm going to call them old school pioneers, right? On all of this stuff. Like in the 20s, there was literature. In the 40s, there was literature about all of this. And then what happened to it? Didn't serve the collective consciousness at the level that it was at. So it gets discredited, right? It gets called weird, or, crystals and wood, like all of this stuff, which I'm adamantly against because it is such a disservice to our collective energy and consciousness at large. And
Mm-hmm.
100%, when we can become a population that experiences something physical, right? I'll give you an example. I was on the phone with a friend yesterday, and her back was really, and she's a yoga teacher, like she's there, so I'm able to go there with her like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her back has been hurting her for a couple weeks, and she was like, I'm just, I did my acupuncture. Like she was going through the things that we think, and I paused and I said, because I know her very well, she's having a lot of, there's a lot going on with her mother right now, like a lot of stuff. And I said to her, I said, it's interesting uh, that you're going through what you're going through with your mother right now. And that is historically where your mother's physical pain always manifested, because her
Mm-hmm.
mother always had back pain, and she's going through this stuff with her mother, and she was like, oh my God. And I was like, so how possible is it that it's time for you to actually feel, not know I feel a certain way. We don't feel cognitively, right? Awareness of feeling is not feeling.
Yeah.
How possible is it that you're being called to like fully allow the cycle and the flow of all of that emotion that you're feeling, that you've been holding around the shit with her,
Mm-hmm.
so that it can alleviate? And she was like, oh, okay. And it started to, her back in that, like, started to just slightly loosen its grasp. So now she's moving through those emotions, but that's supportive what you're saying. That's what's real. And
Yeah.
it's the whole point of the new world. And I'm not saying, listen, I appreciate so many things in the Western world, and doctors and the medical field, like it all has its place, and it's wildly incomplete. And we're way too highly dependent on finding an external solution for anything. We need to start functioning in tandem. And how beautiful would it be for any of us to experience a sty or a shoulder pain?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of rushing to the ibuprofen, just take a second to get into your body and ask that part of yourself, like, yo, what's going on here?
Right.
Right?
Get
That's,
out of your
we're going there.
get out of your head into your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, you mentioned the side of spirituality that really irks me too, which does paint a picture of like this like hippie fairies foraging and living off the earth and woo woo and all of those things. And I feel like when you think of spirituality, you don't also think of the successful business owners or entrepreneurs that are living in penthouses or traveling. Like it's that they you don't think of those people as spiritual, but if you had a conversation with different people, you'd see that they're probably more spiritual than the people that you see walking down the street with dreadlocks and dripping in crystals. So I love that you talk about this and that you're kind of breaking down that misconception. And also you talk about bridging science with spirituality. Can you talk about more on that, like how you're doing that?
Thank you. Yes. And this is one of the reasons why I'm on the please everyone in the world stop saying woo woo campaign, because it's not woo woo. The definition of woo woo is that it is not founded on anything real. It's just an abstract, random construct or, belief that is not based in anything scientific or provable. And
Mm.
that's a complete lie. Spirituality is science. And when we allow woo woo, what it does is it keeps people skeptical. Like woo woo is just a function of I'm skeptical, I'm afraid, I'm not sure I can tap into this. Everything is love, everything is self protection. None of this is like aggressive.
Mm.
And to recognize, well, when I label it as woo woo, I keep it away from me and I allow my skepticism to continue, which is a form of self protection. And then I continue to live in my humanness, because then I continue to push matter against matter and feel like I'm separate from everything. And
Mm.
that affirms what I perceive my identity to be in the reality that I'm living in. And if I were to release the woo woo label and open myself up to the truth of what I am derived from, which I will explain in a minute, oh my God, then what does that mean? And now I have to trust, now I have to let go, and now I have to feel things, and now I have to surrender. And even logically, it might be like, but of course I want those things. But at the level of your nervous system, you don't,
Mm.
because it's scary, right? So this is where the work that we are doing is so complete. And that's the word I use, because I believe in everything. And I think our world needs more coaches, healers, light workers, conversations, we need more and more. We don't have nearly enough.
Mm.
And the thing that distinguishes us is the completeness of what we deliver, right? Because we cannot just talk about spirituality and energetics without having a foundational direct relationship with the nervous system, right? It's like this combo of, since the scientific truth is that we're spiritual energetic beings having a human experience, then our work teaches you and helps you embody the practical understanding of which lever to pull at what point. Is this in my humanness? Is this in my spirituality, right?
Mm.
And it makes everything exponentially more amazing. So spirituality is science,
Mm.
because we are 99.9999999% energy that appear in this meat suit called Tracy, right? Called
Yeah.
Jessica. Uh, And when we recognize that, we realize that we are actually derived from this point of singularity in time. So some people call it the all of the all, the void, the point of singularity, where the Big Bang occurred and the universe was born, and the speed of light then happened, which is how we actually see things, because we have light. And when we realize that, okay, wait a minute. So what she's saying is, at the core, we're derived from the same thing that the sun and the moon and the stars and the atoms and everything is derived from, that oneness, that pure consciousness, that pure love, that complete wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And then we realize, okay, spirituality is science, because there's something bigger than at play here, and we are part of that something bigger, and
Mm.
we actually are literally scientifically 99.99999% energy and only 0.00001% matter. But the world and the culture and the society that we live in, and the level of the masses collective consciousness, only wants to acknowledge that 0.00001%. And we stay in lack and fear and separation, making it hard and pushing and pushing and pushing, and burnout and triggers and activations. And it's like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
I want everyone to start to question.
When you say that we're energy, I want to clarify is because I've heard something like this, but I've heard that we're space.
Well, we are space because energy is just space. Like energy isn't tangible. It
Right.
becomes tangible the slower the vibration, right? So if we look at it, like really get into it,
Mm-hmm.
the slower the vibration, the more matter it becomes. Right?
Mm.
So that's why if we put my hand under a microscope and just looked underneath, the skin, the fascia, and all of the parts of my bone and everything. We drill it down. What's inside of it is, oh, it's wave, it's atoms, which is energy, which is space. So it is all of the space inside of us and the space outside of us. It's all particles and we're all connected to it. It's just oscillating, meaning vibrating at different speeds. And the slower the speed, the lower the vibration.
Mm,
That's why we can connect emotional states to frequency, because the lower the so if you're experiencing like a lot of insecurity, let's say, that is a very low vibration. Whereas
mm,
when we're talking about things like, high vibe and love and radiance and trust and creation and enlightenment, those are much higher vibrations.
mm. Okay, I'm glad that we're getting into vibrations. I would love to talk about consciousness. I know that you've spoken about 3D and 5D. So
Mhm.
what's the difference between having a 3D consciousness and a 5D consciousness?
So good. And I I teach this very specifically, like I'll break this down inside of mind magic and everything we do. So I'm going to try to give you like concise. So baseline, third dimensional is human, fifth dimensional is spiritual, energetics. And I like to use that two words interchangeably because by no means is spirituality religion when I'm
Mm,
speaking about it. 3D is ego, 5D is soul, right? 3D is lack, 5D is abundance. 3D is the state of limitation, 5D is the state of creation,
mm,
right? 3D, you have problems that you try to fix, 5D problems don't exist at all because in the fifth dimension of consciousness, everything's perspective,
yes.
right? 3D is judgment and everything outside of me is happening to me, and 5D is openness and everything is happening through me.
Mm,
So those are just a little bit like if you would imagine like a side by side
yeah.
for some of the active descriptions, and we go deep into this even in the School of Becoming, which is this gorgeous, it's our new, the Litt Factor has been around for 6 years. We just turned 6 in September. And I was called to build something different. So the Litt Factor is now becoming the parent company. We just birthed the School of Becoming. And the
Mm,
School of Becoming is this revolutionary online institute of higher consciousness and intentional evolution for women. And I built something called the Ascension Spectrum so that you could visually see what I'm talking about. And it's free. And when you take the assessment, it shows you where on the spectrum you are and explains matter and low vibe and like the emotions and the things you could recognize, which is really important. It's one of the reasons why I love doing what I do, because we make it practical and digestible. Like I'm just going to be like, oh, it's this and it's this and it's this. So you can go, oh my God, that's totally where I am. Okay, great. When we can take these seemingly like completely impossible to understand, enigmatic, complex topics and
mm,
make them so digestible and understandable that you look at me and you're like, that's it.
mhm.
That's all it is. That's like our superpower. So if this is interesting for you, I would say go create an account because you can take the assessment and then you'll literally see you are here and you will see the difference in how you can start to bridge the gap.
Mm. Okay, so it kind of helps you see how you see the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and where you are in your own, journey. We're all on our own journey, of our own personal growth, healing, and expansion, and all those beautiful things. And I am very visual, like as a result of my upbringing and never believing I was smart enough, which is why I wrote Worthy Human, my first book. And, kind of going through all of that, I became a very visual learner. So if I don't see it, so I teach that way. So if I can't see it, I'm like floating out somewhere and I can't understand it. So we create a lot of visuals. So you're like, oh, I see. It's right there. I see it. I get it. Thank you. Done. I understand it all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, is there a 4D?
Yes, there is. So I mean, the dimensions of consciousness go all the way to 12D, but we focus and teach on three, 4, and 5.
Okay.
And in 4D is the bridge. So like right now, if let's say you weren't as aware of consciousness, but now we're in this conversation, you're like, whoa, there's dimensions. There's a program that's running me that lives in the third dimension. You're now in 4D because you're now the observer of as soon as you recognize there's a program, you're elevating your consciousness. Consciousness is just the state of your awareness,
Okay.
right? So now I've become aware, like, oh, whoa, oh, there's a program running me. Look at that. Okay. Now
Mm-hmm.
you've elevated that. So 4D is really the bridge. It's where you start to heal. It's where you start to question everything. It's where you start to like maybe like do some magical things because you did some stuff inside of yourself and you gain a new result or like a synchronicity. But you question it because you're like, but really? Was that me? Was that my energy? Like you're in this beautiful bridge moment
Oh,
to higher. Yeah.
that's great. Okay. I've never heard it explained. So that paints a really good picture. There was also, okay, one thing that I want to go a little bit deeper on between the 3D and the 5D. You mentioned problems. So 3D, you have problems, so you want to come up with solutions and whatever. And then 5D, you don't have problems. It's your perception, and you don't perceive things as problems. I am on board with this 1000%. My question to you would be, what about when something happens, like you get a flat tire, or your house is burning down and your dog is trapped inside? Like, at what point is there anything that is a problem, or how would you perceive something like that?
I wouldn't perceive anything through the lens of problems because I don't. Because this is part of like real um, identity evolution and mastery is we live in a 3D world. I'm fully aware. We have a meat suit. We've got to move it through space and time. That's what's real. You're not and this is another, I just want to say this and I will fully go into what you're saying. This is another component of this. You also can't just like hang out up here in all these higher levels of consciousness and dimensions of consciousness and not come down and like be in your body and move shit forward. That is a big thing that I see in the world too, as people tap in. They're like, okay, so I'll this and I'll align and then I'll be there, but then I don't move my ass. You got to move your ass, right? Action is part of how the universe and the greater intelligence actually knows what's up and plays with you that way.
Mm.
So problems don't exist. There might be moments in time where we have to respond to things, right? Moments in time where something is painful, moments in time where you're experiencing a very human experience. And let's talk about the burning house one because that's much more palpable and like what, right? And there's something bigger than us at play. So
Mm.
there is a sweet spot here that we all need to learn that I am proud to be teaching, which is so then the human part of you in that moment when the house is burning down, right? Obviously in the moment you're responding. Okay. So let's not talk about it. It's literally happening. You've got to respond to it, right? But you still do it from a very regulated place because it's unhelpful to any crisis style situation to meet it with the crisis energy that it's presenting.
Mm.
Okay. So then let's assume now it's done, right? And in this particular story, the dog didn't get out.
Mm.
There is a imperative balance of fully feeling all of the pain and the tragedy and the sadness and the what the Fness and all of the things of a human experience like that. And the key is to be so connected to your body and understand the depth of feeling your feelings that you can feel every feeling that's coming up as it's being asked to be felt in the moment and over the weeks and months and years to come without getting cognitive about it, without becoming the emotions. Really understanding that emotion is energy in motion and something is asking to be felt. So don't you dare don't interfere with that. Be a being who feels their feelings freely and unapologetically until they're done. That's part one. Then that ability, because feeling your feelings is a natural regulator. Ah, As you're doing that, you're actually becoming more regulated, more grounded, which opens up your ability to recognize conscious choice, to then go, wait a minute, and at what is truth is, there's something bigger than me at play here.
Mm,
And I'm not going to fight against the truth that everything happens for the highest good, even in the moments when it feels like straight shit. And
mm,
that's what it starts to mean to actually be someone that embodies the uh, completeness of being a spiritual, energetic being, having a human experience. You don't stay in your humanness. People start to feel something and then they think about it, they analyze it, and then why, and now they're cognitive about it, and now you're tripling whatever you were carrying because now you're in judgment of the thing that happened. It's such a shit show. It doesn't
mm,
have to be that way. You can just be like, whoa, okay, hear what she's saying. Things happen. My mother died at 24. I was holding her hand. I watched her. I
mm,
watched her do that thing that happens right before you die, where you seem for a moment like you're coming back to life. And there's a gasp that happens, a breath gasp, where it's like, I watch that. I miss her all the time. And when anything comes up, just like I'm sitting here with you, I just go, great. What do you need, body? Go, feel it. Like, I don't go, oh my God, I can't believe I lost her. How tragic. Blah, 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 blah. No, that's getting cognitive about something that is not cognitive.
mm,
Emotion is for the body. Let it be for the body. And then, in feeling these feelings so readily, and now it's 23 years that she's gone, and I can feel that grief like it was 2 days ago. And then from feeling the feeling, I know this was part of her soul's objective. It's part of my soul's objective. It is truly the tapestry of highest good. And I trust that there is something so much bigger, so much smarter than me that is in support of the all.
mm. Full body chills.
Thank you.
There, I want to respect your time, so I'm trying to choose the topic I want to hear from the most and that would benefit the listeners. Um, Probably this one, because a lot of people are stressed and anxious. And I know that you've talked about being addicted to stress and anxiety. So, how can we start? If someone's listening and they're feeling that way, how can they start to regulate their nervous system?
Beautiful question. And I agree, a great one to choose. And we know each other now, so we'll have more conversations.
Mm,
Um, the first thing I want to explain is we refer to them and we teach this as emotional addictions because it's important to recognize that, addictions, we use a definition by this beautiful doctor, Dr. Judson Brewer, and his definition of an addiction is continued use despite adverse consequence. Right? So you're
mm,
continuously stressed, feeling stressed, doing things in your behavior and your thought process to affirm the stress, right? Even though you don't want the stress. So when
mm,
we recognize that and we think about it through the word addiction, it's like, oh, that helps us kind of like jack up our awareness a little bit to be like, okay, so I really am being asked to pay attention to this now and recognize that stress and anxiety is like the homeostasis for me. That's what feels familiar. That's whatever your emotional addiction is familiar throughout more than likely your entire life since like little girlness or little boyness up through now. And uh, because that is the state of emotional familiarity, that is what your identity, right? Your beliefs, your thoughts, your words, how you behave, all of those things will continue to affirm that over and over and over and over and over again. And then you'll just think that's the way you are, right? So really being able to recognize like, okay, so anxiety is not who I am. I wasn't born with anxiety. I acquired it. It's an adaptive behavior, right? It's like, okay, anxiety is something your system learned because of your narcissistic parent or the chaos or, insert any standard childhood experience. And what we get to do now is start to interrupt that stress, that anxiety by coming back into our body. by starting to build an awareness of, wow, this moment is an awareness. Ooh, it's so interesting. It is an addiction. I can see how I use that issue in my life to affirm that emotional addiction. I can see, wow, and radical personal responsibility. I can see how I use that thing that my spouse does that is so meaningless as a way to give myself a hit on that stress that I have to do everything, right? So it's really, this is why it's like a journey, right? This is mastery. And the best things we can do right away to love that beautiful nervous system is breathing differently and breathing on purpose. I mean, we can do drills, and there's a whole ton of different things we do in somatics and nervous system. But truly, and I tattooed it on myself at the beginning of my journey, breathe. That was like the first tattoo that I got when I started this journey of my own expansion, because we don't breathe. Like if you pay attention to yourself for the rest of the day, whenever you get to listen to this gift of a conversation, you're going to be amazed that you're even still alive, because you hold your breath for so long, so frequently, and that keeps you dysregulated. And your emotional addictions are emotions of dysregulation. You're not having the emotional addiction of love and detachment. No, that's what we're going for. The emotional addictions that we hold are all dysregulation. Like if we were looking at the umbrella, they're all stress and anxiety and pressure and overwhelm and insecurity and worthlessness and, all of those things. So when you start to breathe, you actually start to activate your regulation state, your parasympathetic state. And you can do that by breathing in for a count of 2 and out for a count of 4. Like any pattern where you double the exhale is going to help you tremendously. 2 in, 4 out, 3 in, 6 out, 5 in, 10 out, right? In and out through your nose is the ticket, right? Alternate nostril breathing is another phenomenal one, where you breathe in, like you plug one nostril, you breathe in through one, and then you plug the one you breathed in and you exhale the other one. So you're literally just toggling. And you could Google alternate nostril breathing. There's beautiful examples everywhere. But that's where we begin, because the simplicity of, I am now aware that the emotions that I am trying to not experience anymore, like stress and anxiety, are literally how I have raised myself unconsciously to affirm, confirm, and further embed these emotions at the level of my cells. Wow, that's interesting. And the simplest first thing I can do, because we need more awareness first, we need more space. I need you to keep becoming aware of yourself. We teach something called the NJO, which is your non-judgmental observer, and that's step 1 when you start mind magic, because this NJO loves you so much, and you need to start noticing a lot more than you're currently noticing. So then when we start to breathe in the different ways I explained, you just start to chill down a little bit, right? You just start to drop in a little bit, and you start to feel a little bit safer every time you're calm. So when you're feeling that stress come upon you, don't get cognitive. Oh my God, why? It's here. Stop it. Just stop it. And when you sense that come upon you, you simply go, wait a second, I am going to tap into my power. Let me make a new choice. And let me breathe. That's the beginning.
I guarantee you everyone listening was breathing deeply through that whole thing, which is so beneficial. I know I was. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Before I ask it, where can people find you?
Thank you. On Instagram, we are at the Litt Factor. So it's Lit with 2 T's. I always thank my dad. I did nothing for that kick-ass last name, but so go to at the Litt Factor on Instagram, and then please come to theschoolofbecoming.com. That is where everything is, and the library is so abundant. It's the beginning of your journey is all free resources. Read content, watch content, listen content, and when you take the Ascension assessment, which is also part of your free library account, it's like an 11-question assessment that's super fun, because if it's not light and fun, I don't want to do it. And then you get your result and you see where you are on the Ascension spectrum that we talked about. And then I send you 3 curated pieces from the library that match what your result was. So then I'm going to send you like, read this one first, watch this one first, listen to this thing first before you go explore it all.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm definitely going to do that myself. And all of that will be in the show notes, of course. And then my last question for you is, what is your number one health tip? So whether it's mindset, diet and nutrition, physical, emotional, just the one piece of advice that you would like everyone to know.
Feel. Feel.
Hmm.
It is the most effective, fastest way to holistic health. Mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial, environmental, all of it. Feel, feel, feel some more.
Amen. Thank you so much, Tracy. This has been a pleasure. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. This has been an incredible conversation. I could talk to you for hours. And I'm just so grateful. And for all of you listening to us, thank you for your attention.
That concludes this episode. If this resonated with you, please give it a rating and review. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. Links are in the show notes. I sincerely thank you for your time and your presence.